Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Homebound. Staff Sergeant Boyd Riker stared out the airplane window as snow-covered landscapes gave way to the twinkling lights of suburban America. After 15 grueling months leading special operations in Eastern Europe, all he wanted was to hold his wife Monica and see the look on his daughter Zoe's face when he surprised her for Christmas. The deployment had been classified. Officially, he wasn't due home for another month. Boyd fingered the silver pendant in his pocket. He'd commissioned it from a local artisan in Krakow, a delicate piece with 3 intertwined bands representing himself, Monica, and Zoe. 20 years of marriage hadn't dimmed his love for Monica, even through the strain of multiple deployments. "You look like a man with somewhere important to be," said the older gentleman beside him. Boyd smiled. "Home. 15 months away. Surprising my family for Christmas. Military." When Boyd nodded, the man extended his hand. "Frank Pearson. My son served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Thank you for your service." They chatted as the plane descended. Frank was a retired judge who spoke of his children with pride, particularly his son who had struggled after returning from combat. "Family's everything," Frank said. "But coming home, it can be complicated. People change when you're gone." Boyd nodded politely, but inwardly dismissed the concern. He and Monica had weathered longer separations. Their weekly video calls had been affectionate, though sometimes brief due to her increasing responsibilities at the hospital where she worked as a nurse administrator. In the terminal, Boyd spotted his friend Wes Curtis, who'd agreed to pick him up without telling anyone. "Look what the war spit out." Wes grinned, embracing him. A former Marine himself, Wes understood the brotherhood. "How was the flight?" "Long. How's everything been?" Something flickered across Wes's face. "Fine. You know how it goes." During the drive to Lakeside Heights, their upper-middle-class neighborhood, Boyd noticed Wes seemed unusually tense. "Something on your mind?" Boyd asked. Wes tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Just glad you're back, brother." Boyd's instincts, the same that had kept him alive in hostile territory, prickled. "Monica and Zoe doing okay?" "Far as I know." Wes kept his eyes on the road. "Haven't seen them much lately." "Strange. The families have been close for years." They pulled onto Oak Ridge Drive, and Boyd's heart quickened at the sight of his colonial-style home, decorated with tasteful Christmas lights. Not extravagant, but welcoming. The lights were on, meaning someone was home. "Wanting to come in?" Wes asked an unusual offer. "Nah, I've got this." "Thanks for the ride." Boyd grabbed his duffel and walked up the familiar path, noticing small changes. New landscaping, a different welcome mat. The door painted a deep burgundy instead of navy blue. Monica must have been busy. He considered ringing the doorbell, but decided against it. It was his home, after all. He unlocked the door with his key and stepped inside. The entryway had been remodeled. Gone are the family photos that once lined the wall. Instead, abstract artwork hung in their place. The air smelled of unfamiliar cologne. "Hello," Boyd called out, dropping his bag. He heard hurried whispers from the kitchen. Then Monica appeared in the hallway. She wore an elegant black dress he'd never seen, her blonde hair styled differently than he remembered. For a moment, genuine shock registered on her face, then something else. Alarm. "Boy," she didn't move to embrace him. "What are you doing here?" "Surprise," he said, arms outstretched. "Got cleared to come home early." Her eyes darted behind her. This isn't a good time." Before Boyd could respond, a tall man with silver-streaked dark hair appeared behind Monica, hand possessively on her waist. "Everything okay, darling?" Boyd's world tilted. "Who's this?" Monica straightened, composing herself. "I'm sorry. I think you have a wrong house." The blood in Boyd's veins turned to ice. "What?" "I said, I think you have the wrong house." Her voice was steady, eyes challenging. Boyd looked between them, noticing the man's expensive watch, the unfamiliar furniture, the complete absence of any evidence that he had ever lived there. "Monica, what the hell?" "I'm calling security if you don't leave," the man said, pulling out his phone. Boyd's military training kept him from physically reacting, But inside, something fundamental shattered. Without another word, he picked up his bag and walked out. Chapter 2. Revelations. Boyd sat in Wes's truck, parked a block away from what he'd thought was still his home, trying to process what had just happened. His phone buzzed. Zoe calling. "Dad." Her voice sounded small. "Where are you?" "Just left the house," he said flatly. "Your mother said I had the wrong place." A pause. "Don't be upset, but you know we couldn't let you in." Understood. Military brevity, hiding the hurricane inside him. "It's just complicated right now. We didn't expect you until January." Boyd said nothing, and in the silence, Zoe apparently forgot to hang up. He heard her speaking to someone else. "It's fine. I handled it." "No, he left." "Well, what was I supposed to say?" "He still thinks helping with rent means he's automatically included." Boyd sat in shock, listening to his daughter laugh with someone. Her mother, possibly the strange man, at his expense. He ended the call and turned to Wes, who was watching him with a grim expression. "You knew," Boyd said. "Not a question." Wes sighed heavily. "I suspected. Things haven't looked right for months. Monica's been seen around town with some hotshot doctor. I didn't want to tell you while you were deployed. What good would it have done?" "How long?" "The guy moved in about 6 months ago. Dr. Lawrence Reed, new chief of surgery at County General. I tried to talk to Zoe about it once, but she shut me down. Said you and Monica had an arrangement." Boyd's laugh was hollow. "An arrangement? I've been faithful for 20 years. His phone began buzzing with texts from Zoe. "Dad, please don't make this difficult. Mom and Larry are happy. I'm happy too. We can meet tomorrow to talk about everything. This doesn't mean we don't care about you." Boyd turned off his phone and asked Wes to drive him to a hotel. At the Lakeside Inn, Boyd checked in and sat on the edge of the bed, methodically analyzing the situation like a tactical problem. His wife had moved another man into their home, redecorated to erase his existence, and his daughter was complicit. For months, Monica had maintained the fiction of their marriage during video calls, never hinting at her betrayal. He opened his laptop and checked their joint accounts. Regular withdrawals had been occurring, large ones, to fund what he now realized was their new life without him. His military pay, diligently deposited each month, had financed his own erasure. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Boyd opened it to find an elderly woman, Iris Jenkins, his next-door neighbor for 15 years. "Boyd, thank God. I saw you at the house earlier. May I come in?" Inside, Iris revealed what Wes hadn't known. The affair had started over a year ago. Dr. Reed wasn't just Monica's boss. He was a wealthy, politically connected physician with a reputation for pursuing married women. "I tried to talk to Monica," Iris said. "Reminded her of her vows. She said you had grown apart, that you were married to the military. When they started renovating, removing every trace of you, I knew something was terribly wrong." And Zoe, Iris's expression hardened. Dr. Reed bought her a new car, paid for an apartment near her university. She used to be such a sweet girl, but money changed her. She started saying terrible things, that you were cold, absent, that you cared more about your soldiers than your family. Boyd thanked Iris for her honesty. After she left, he made 2 calls, one to his commanding officer requesting extended leave, and another to Thomas Grayson, a former squad mate who had become an attorney specializing in family law. That night, Boyd didn't sleep. Instead, he formulated a plan with the same precision he'd use for a high-risk operation. This wasn't just about divorce, it was about justice. By morning, he had canceled all automatic payments to the joint accounts, removed his name from utilities, and transferred his remaining funds to a new account. He was ready to begin Phase 1. Chapter 3. First Strike. Boyd woke to 63 missed calls and dozens of increasingly frantic text messages. Monica, Zoe, and even Reed had been trying to reach him all night. The mortgage payment had been due, credit cards were declining, and the utilities were scheduled for disconnection. "Where are you?" Monica had texted. "We need to talk about this like adults." "Dad, this is so immature," came Zoe's message. "Mom is really upset." Boyd deleted them all and met Thomas Grayson for breakfast at a diner across town. "What you're describing is criminal," Thomas said after hearing the full story. "They've effectively stolen from you, committed identity fraud using your information, and potentially violated military spouse benefits regulations. I don't want a messy court battle, Boyd said. I want surgical precision. Thomas's smile was wolfish. Then let's start with the house. You purchased it before the marriage, correct? Boyd nodded. It was my grandfather's inheritance. Monica's name was added to the deed later. Good. And the renovations were done without your knowledge or consent while you were deployed on active duty. Correct. There are special protections for active military. We can file for an emergency injunction today. They'll be legally prohibited from selling assets or making further changes to the property. By noon, the legal paperwork was filed. Boyd's next stop was the hospital where Monica and Reed worked. He didn't go inside, but sat in a rental car watching the entrance. At 2:13 p.m., he saw them emerge together, Monica looking stressed as they hurried to Reed's Mercedes. Boyd followed at a distance, observing their routine. They stopped at an upscale restaurant. Clearly regular customers greeted warmly by staff. After lunch, Reed returned to the hospital while Monica drove to a spa. Boyd continued surveillance, gathering information, noting patterns. Later that afternoon, he visited Zoe's apartment near Westlake University. He didn't announce himself, but watched from across the street as she emerged with friends, laughing, getting into the new BMW that Reed had purchased. Her carefree demeanor told him everything. That evening, Boyd met with another former military contact, Damon Walsh, who now worked in digital security. What you're asking for is technically legal, Damon said, but ethically gray. I need to know what I'm dealing with, Boyd insisted. They've hidden things for over a year. I need the full picture. Damon provided Boyd with access to data recovery tools and guidance on legally retrieving his own information from family devices and accounts. Just stay within these parameters, he warned. Cross this line, and you're in felony territory. Armed with this knowledge, Boyd returned to his hotel and began piecing together the extent of the betrayal. Email records showed Monica and Reed planning their future together while Boyd was dodging bullets overseas. Financial records revealed that Reed had been investing in Zoe's future, buying her loyalty, while Monica had been systematically moving assets. Most damning was a series of messages between Monica and Zoe discussing Boyd's deployment insurance policy. Worth $750,000, it would pay out if he died in combat. They had actually discussed how that money could help with Zoe's graduate school and a down payment on a vacation home. Boyd sat back, cold fury replacing the initial shock and pain. In that moment, something fundamental changed within him. The loyal, trusting man who had boarded the plane home no longer existed. In his place was someone calculating, methodical, and utterly merciless. His phone rang, Monica again. This time, he answered. Boyd, finally, what do you think you're doing? The mortgage payment bounced. Did you really think I'd keep paying for a house I'm not welcome in? His voice was calm, detached. This is childish. We need to talk about this like adults. Like the adult conversation you had before moving your lover into my house. Or the adult way you discussed spending my death benefits with our daughter. Silence. Then, you've been spying on us? No, Monica. I've been gathering evidence. There's a difference. Boyd, please. An officer will be serving you papers tomorrow. I suggest you find somewhere else to live. You have 48 hours before the utilities are shut off permanently. You can't do this. Where are we supposed to go? That sounds like a question for your chief of surgery. I hear he's quite wealthy. He ended the call and blocked her number. Next, he sent a simple text to Zoe. Your tuition payment for next semester has been canceled. Your car insurance has been terminated. You made your choice. Live with it. He blocked her number too, then called Wes. It's done, Boyd said. Phase 1 complete. You okay? Wes asked. No, Boyd replied honestly. But I will be. This is just the beginning. Chapter 4, Gathering Intel. Over the next week, Boyd operated from a tactical command center he'd established in a rented studio apartment paid for in cash. Walls covered with information, financial records, photographs, timelines, resembled the intelligence operations he'd run overseas. The difference? This time, his targets were his own family. Thomas Grayson arrived with updates. The emergency injunction was granted. They can't sell the house or any major assets. Monica tried to empty the remaining joint accounts, but our freeze beat her by hours. How are they responding? Panic. Reed's attorney called mine, trying to negotiate. Apparently, they're staying at the Westlake Hotel, $600 a night. Reed's not as liquid as they thought. Much of his wealth is tied up in investments and property. Monica's discovering that her boyfriend isn't quite the white knight she imagined. Boyd nodded, unsurprised. And Zoe returned to student housing after her apartment lease was terminated. She's filed for emergency financial aid. Her boyfriend dumped her when the BMW was repossessed. This gave Boyd no satisfaction. Despite everything, part of him still saw Zoe as his little girl. But she had made her choice, chosen comfort and luxury over loyalty, and would face the consequences. A knock at the door revealed Iris Jenkins with a home-cooked meal and new information. They came back for clothes and personal items, she reported. Monica was hysterical when she found her jewelry missing from the safe. Not missing, Boyd clarified. Relocated to a secure deposit box. Items purchased with joint funds are subject to division. Well, she didn't see it that way. Called the police, claimed robbery. Boyd smiled thinly. Did the officers enjoy viewing the legal documentation I left on the counter? They did not take a report. Iris confirmed with satisfaction. After she left, Boyd received a call from another contact, Layla Santos, a nurse who worked under Monica at the hospital. I found what you were looking for, she said. Reed's previous position in Boston, he left under a cloud. Sexual harassment allegations from 3 nurses, all settled out of court with NDAs. The hospital buried it to avoid scandal, but the records exist. And Monica's advancement, her promotion to administrator, came 2 weeks after their relationship began. 3 more qualified candidates were passed over. Boyd thanked her for the information. Layla had approached him after hearing about the situation. She'd experienced Reed's inappropriate behavior firsthand and had been demoted after rejecting him. That evening, Boyd visited County General's board chairman, Richard Hargrove, a Vietnam veteran whose son Boyd had served with in his first deployment. I was sorry to hear about your situation, Hargrove said, inviting Boyd into his study. Monica was always so supportive at military family events. Hard to believe she'd do this. People surprise you, Boyd replied. I'm not here about my marriage, though. I'm concerned about the hospital's liability. He presented the evidence of Reed's pattern of behavior and Monica's questionable promotion. Hargrove's expression darkened as he reviewed the documents. The board has been insulated from these issues. Reed charmed his way past our vetting. If what you're showing me is accurate, we have serious exposure. I don't want to damage the hospital, Boyd assured him. It serves our community. But Reed's predatory behavior and abuse of power need addressing. Hargrove nodded grimly. Leave this with me. The board meets tomorrow. As Boyd prepared to leave, Hargrove asked, What do you want out of this, son? Revenge. Boyd considered the question. Justice, he finally said, and to ensure they never profit from betrayal. The next day, Boyd received an unexpected visitor at his temporary apartment. Trevor, Monica's younger brother, whom Boyd had always been close to. I just found out what happened, Trevor said, visibly uncomfortable. Monica told the family you'd had a breakdown, that you were threatening her. I knew something didn't add up. How did you find me? Wes. I cornered him at his shop. Trevor shifted nervously. Look, there's something you should know. Reed's been pressing Monica to go after your military pension. He's got a friend in family court, Judge Phillips. They play golf together. Boyd's expression remained neutral, but internally, his resolve hardened further. Thanks for the warning. What are you going to do? What I was trained to do. Identify the threat. Neutralize it. With precision. After Trevor left, Boyd called Thomas with new instructions, then contacted another former squad member, Victor Ramirez, now a private investigator specializing in judicial misconduct. Judge Phillips, huh? Victor said. Interesting timing. I've had my eye on him for a client. There's a pattern of favorable rulings for certain attorneys, including Reed's lawyer. Nothing concrete enough for the Judicial Review Board yet, but where there's smoke, find a fire, Boyd instructed. Whatever it costs. By week's end, Boyd had compiled dossiers on everyone involved in his systematic erasure. Not just Monica, Reed, and Zoe, But the contractors who had renovated his home, the bankers who had processed suspicious transactions, even Zoe's friends who had helped conceal the truth, each would face consequences proportionate to their involvement. Boyd wasn't interested in collateral damage, only precise, targeted justice that would leave no doubt about the cost of betrayal. Chapter 5. Counteroffensive. On day 12 of Boyd's campaign, Dr. Lawrence Reed was called to an emergency board meeting at County General. He arrived confident, unaware that Richard Hargrove had spent the week quietly interviewing staff and reviewing personnel records. Reed emerged 3 hours later, ashen-faced, security escort at his side, carrying a cardboard box of personal items. His surgical privileges had been suspended pending investigation. His hospital-sponsored luxury apartment would need to be vacated within 30 days. Monica, waiting in the parking lot, watched in disbelief as Reed threw the box into his trunk and punched the roof of his car. "What happened?" she demanded. "Hargrove happened. That sanctimonious bastard ambushed me with harassment complaints going back 3 years. Someone's been digging, pulling records from Boston, interviewing staff behind my back." Monica's blood ran cold. "Boy, who else?" Reed snapped. "Your husband's been systematically dismantling our lives while we've been playing defense." That afternoon, they met with Reed's attorney, Calvin Porter, in his downtown office. "The situation is deteriorating," Porter admitted. "The house is untouchable due to the injunction. Reed's position is compromised. Monica, your job is likely next if the hospital investigation expands to nepotism." "This is absurd," Monica protested. "Boyd abandoned us emotionally years ago. His deployments were voluntary after the first 2. He chose the military over us repeatedly." "Courts don't rule on emotional abandonment," Porter explained patiently. "They look at financial support, which he provided consistently, and at infidelity, which, forgive my bluntness, you've admitted to." "What about Zoe?" Reed demanded. "Use her. Boyd wouldn't hurt his daughter." Monica hesitated. "He's already cut her off financially. Blocked her number." "Because you haven't positioned her correctly," Reed insisted. "She needs to reach out, play the devastated daughter, appeal to his paternal instincts." Porter shook his head. "I've reviewed Sergeant Riker's background. Distinguished service record. Multiple commendations for tactical operations. This isn't a man acting on emotion. He's executing a campaign." Meanwhile, Boyd met with Judge Frank Pearson, the same man he'd sat beside on the flight home. Their chance encounter had proven fortuitous when Boyd discovered Pearson's jurisdiction included family court appeals. "What you're describing borders on judicial misconduct," Pearson said after hearing about Judge Phillips. "I can't interfere directly, but I can ensure any appeal receives proper scrutiny." "That's all I ask," Boyd assured him. "A fair process." That evening, Boyd received a tearful voicemail from Zoe, sent from friend's phone since her own service had been disconnected. "Dad, please, I know you're hurt, but I'm your daughter. I'm about to lose my place in the spring semester. I made a mistake, I know that now. Mom and Larry are fighting constantly. Everything's falling apart. Please call me." Boyd listened twice, analyzing her words, her tone. There was genuine distress, but was it remorse for her betrayal, or merely the consequences she now faced? The deliberate use of Larry instead of Dr. Reed suggested coaching. He didn't return the call, but forwarded the message to Thomas with a note. "They're getting desperate. Expect more emotional appeals." The next day, Boyd initiated Phase 2 of his plan, targeting Reed's carefully constructed reputation. Victor Ramirez had delivered a comprehensive report on Reed's professional and personal history, revealing a pattern of relationships with vulnerable women, financial improprieties at his previous hospitals, and strategic friendships with influential figures who could advance his career. Boyd arranged for this information, sanitized of any confidential sources, to reach key individuals, the medical licensing board, professional associations where Reed held leadership positions, and alumni networks that had facilitated his rise. He wasn't spreading rumors or making accusations, merely ensuring that documented facts reached those with oversight responsibility. The whispers began almost immediately. Invitations were rescinded. Speaking engagements canceled. Research funding reconsidered. Reed's carefully cultivated image began unraveling thread by thread. Simultaneously, Boyd filed formal complaints with the Judicial Ethics Committee regarding Judge Phillips, supported by Victor's meticulously documented evidence of preferential treatment. Again, Boyd made no public accusations. He simply ensured the proper authorities had access to verifiable information. Monica, meanwhile, was fighting her own battle at the hospital. Colleagues who had once been friendly now avoided eye contact. Her authority was questioned in meetings. An internal audit of administrative decisions during her tenure had been initiated. When she confronted a former friend in the cafeteria, demanding an explanation, the woman replied simply, "You chose the wrong man to betray, Monica. Boyd Riker served with my husband in Fallujah. He pulled 3 men from a burning Humvee under enemy fire. What did you think would happen when you moved your lover into his house while he was deployed?" That night, Monica found herself alone in their hotel suite, Reed having stormed out after another argument. She poured a glass of wine with shaking hands and opened her laptop to check their dwindling finances. What she found made her gasp. Every credit card was maxed out. Their checking account was overdrawn. Reed's investment portfolio showed margin calls on leverage positions. They were financially hemorrhaging, and Boyd hadn't thrown a single public punch. Chapter 6. Convergence. 21 days after his homecoming, Boyd Riker stood in the empty living room of what had once been his family home. The injunction had prevented further changes, but the damage was done. Every trace of his 20 years with Monica had been systematically erased. Thomas Grayson entered, carrying court documents. "It's done." Judge Phillips recused himself this morning after the Ethics Committee announced a formal investigation. "Your case has been reassigned to Judge Eleanor Watts. No connections to Reed, impeccable reputation, and the house. As expected, your premarital claim is solid. The court has recognized your grandfather's inheritance as the founding asset. Monica's contributions were minimal compared to yours. The property reverts to you exclusively." Boyd nodded, surveying the space. "Have them served with eviction notices for their hotel rooms. It's time they experienced true homelessness." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "The courts typically allow reasonable accommodation periods. There is nothing reasonable about what they did while I was deployed in a combat zone," Boyd replied coldly. "They had choices. They made them." Later that day, Boyd met with Monica at a neutral location, a conference room at Thomas's office. She arrived alone, noticeably thinner, the confident hospital administrator replaced by someone fraying at the edges. "You've made your point," she said without preamble. "You've destroyed everything. Are you satisfied?" Boyd studied her dispassionately. "This isn't about satisfaction, Monica. It's about consequences. We were unhappy for years. You were never home. What did you expect?" "Honesty," he replied simply. "You could have asked for a divorce. Instead, you orchestrated my replacement while taking my money. You involved our daughter in your deception. You discussed how my death would benefit your financial future." Monica paled. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that by this time tomorrow, you'll have no access to the house, no position at the hospital, and no hotel room. Reed's assets are being liquidated to cover his mounting legal expenses. Where will you go? Who will take you in? These are questions you should have considered before dismantling our family." "What about Zoe?" Monica's voice cracked. "She's your daughter. She's an adult who made adult decisions. The consequences are hers to bear." Monica's composure finally broke. "This is inhuman. You're treating us like enemy combatants." "No," Boyd corrected her, rising to leave. "Enemies deserve respect for their conviction. You're opportunists who miscalculated. There's a difference." As Boyd walked out, Monica called after him, "I want to speak to Zoe. I need to know she's okay." Boyd paused at the door. "You should have thought about her welfare before teaching her that loyalty is conditional and love is transactional." That evening, Boyd finally agreed to meet with Zoe at a coffee shop near campus. She looked exhausted, wearing wrinkled clothes, her usual polished appearance gone. "Dad," she began, eyes watering. "Staff Sergeant Riker," he corrected her, "since we're no longer operating as family." Zoe flinched. "Please don't do this. I know I messed up, but..." This isn't about messing up, Boyd interrupted. This is about calculated betrayal. You didn't make a mistake. You made consistent choices over months. Mom said you were never coming back, that you'd chosen your military career over us. Dr. Reed offered stability, opportunities. He bought you, Boyd stated flatly, and you sold cheaply. Tears spilled down Zoe's cheeks. What do you want from me? Nothing. That's the point. You've demonstrated what our relationship is worth to you. I'm simply honoring your valuation. So that's it. 22 years as your daughter erased. Boyd looked at her, allowing himself one moment of the pain he'd been suppressing. Ask your mother about erasure. She's the expert. As he stood to leave, Zoe grabbed his arm. Please, Dad. I have nowhere to go. The dorms close for winter break tomorrow. All my friends' families are traveling. I can't even afford a bus ticket home. Home, Boyd echoed. You don't have one. That was your choice. Choices have consequences, Zoe. It's time you learned that. You placed $500 on the table. Enough for a week at a budget motel. What happens after that is your problem. Boyd walked away, ignoring her calls. Outside, he paused, allowing himself 10 seconds of grief for the daughter he'd loved, before continuing to his car where Wes waited. Target acquired? Wes asked, using their old military shorthand. Target neutralized, Boyd confirmed. Ready for the final phase. Chapter 7. Collapse. Christmas Eve arrived with heavy snow blanketing the city. Boyd spent the morning meeting with Richard Hargrove at County General's administrative offices. The board has reached its decision, Hargrove informed him. Dr. Reed's contract will not be renewed. The investigation found sufficient evidence of professional misconduct, though he's negotiated a resignation rather than termination. And Monica? Administrative leave pending review. The nepotism case is clear-cut. Boyd nodded, gazing out at the hospital grounds where he had once met Monica for lunch dates during their happier years. Will the hospital survive the transition? I never wanted collateral damage. We'll recover, Hargrove assured him. Reed's departure creates an opportunity for genuine leadership. Sometimes systems need to be purged to heal. After leaving the hospital, Boyd drove to the courthouse where Victor Ramirez waited with updates. Judge Phillips' ethics investigation has expanded, Victor reported. 3 more cases have been flagged for irregular rulings, all involving Reed's attorney or associates. Phillips is taking an extended leave of absence. Any other matter? Victor handed over a thick envelope. Complete background on Reed. The man has reinvented himself several times. Changed his name from Lawrence Redmond in 2005 after personal bankruptcy. Before Boston, there were positions in Chicago and Phoenix. Both ended under murky circumstances. He's a climber who cuts ties when things get uncomfortable. Is he cutting ties now? Victor's smile was grim. Trying to. He's been making inquiries about positions in Seattle and San Diego. Updating his credentials, reaching out to contacts. Meanwhile, he's liquidating investments, even at a loss. Planning to abandon Monica, Boyd concluded, unsurprised. For what I've observed, they're barely speaking. She's been making her own contingency plans. Contacted her sister in Florida yesterday. Boyd thanked Victor and continued to his final meeting of the day, with Diane Littlefield, the federal prosecutor handling military benefit fraud cases. The evidence you've provided is compelling, Littlefield acknowledged, reviewing the files. Misrepresentation to obtain military-dependent benefits is a serious offense. Monica continued claiming benefits while clearly no longer functioning as your spouse. I'm not seeking criminal charges, Boyd clarified. Only accountability. That's commendable, but fraud against the government isn't something I can simply ignore. At minimum, she'll face financial penalties and restitution requirements. Boyd left the federal building as dusk fell, watching Christmas shoppers hurry along snowy sidewalks. Families together, carrying packages, laughing. A life he'd thought would be his again. His phone rang. Reed calling from an unknown number. Boyd answered without speaking. Riker? Don't hang up. Reed's voice was tightly controlled. I want to make a deal. I don't make deals with people who take what's mine. Look, this has gone far enough. You made your point. I'm prepared to compensate you for the disruption to your home life. Boyd actually laughed. You think this is about money? Everything's about money eventually, Reed replied. Name your price. What will it take for you to call off your campaign? 50,000? 100? I need this to end. It will end, Boyd assured him. Just not the way you hope. He ended the call and drove to his new apartment, a simple one-bedroom he'd leased after selling most of his possessions. Material things meant little to him now. The Spartan space contained only necessities, plus a wall covered with his strategic planning materials. Boyd methodically removed each document, each photograph, each timeline. The campaign was entering its final phase. The groundwork laid. He could now simply watch as the inevitable consequences unfolded. His doorbell rang. Unusual, since few people knew his location. Through the peephole, he saw Monica, alone, looking desperate. Boyd opened the door, but blocked the entrance. This is private property. You're not welcome here. Please, she whispered. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Against his better judgment, Boyd allowed her inside. She stood awkwardly in the center of the room, taking in the Spartan surroundings. So this is where you've been orchestrating our destruction, she said. You destroyed yourself, Monica. I merely ensured you couldn't profit from it. She sank onto the single chair. Larry's leaving. He's accepted a position in Seattle. Without me. Boyd remained expressionless. Unsurprising. Is that all you have to say? 20 years together, and all I get is unsurprising? What did you expect? Sympathy? After you moved your lover into my house while I was deployed? After you discussed how my death would benefit your finances? Monica flinched. That was a mistake. A terrible, stupid comment I never should have made. I was angry at you for re-enlisting. Save the revisionist history. You methodically erased me from our home, our family, our life. Now you're experiencing the same. What about Zoe? She's sleeping in her car, Boyd. On Christmas Eve, her choices led her there, as yours led you here. Monica stood, desperation turning to anger. You become a monster. The Boyd I married would never be this cruel. The Boyd you married died the moment he walked into his home and was told he had the wrong house. He replied evenly. You created this version, live with the consequences. After she left, Boyd sat in silence, feeling nothing but a cold certainty that justice was being served. His phone buzzed with a text from Wes. Company's arriving at the rendezvous point. Operation still a go? Boyd replied simply, execute as planned. Chapter 8. Reckoning. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight glinting off fresh snow. Boyd drove to the agreed location, an upscale restaurant with private dining rooms, now closed for the holiday, but opened specially for this occasion by the owner, a veteran Boyd had once served with. Inside, Thomas Grayson, Victor Ramirez, Richard Hargrove, Judge Pearson, and several others waited. Each had played a role in Boyd's campaign, knowingly or unknowingly. Now they would witness its conclusion. Everything's prepared, Thomas confirmed. They'll arrive separately over the next hour. The first to appear was Monica, escorted by a courthouse officer. Her confusion at the formal summons turned to shock when she saw Boyd at the head of the table. What is this? She demanded. Please be seated, Mrs. Riker, the officer instructed. All will be explained when the other parties arrive. Next came Reed, similarly escorted and equally bewildered. He avoided eye contact with Monica, taking a seat at the opposite end of the table. Finally, Zoe arrived, looking exhausted and disheveled. Seeing both her mother and Reed, she hesitated at the doorway until the officer gently guided her to a chair. Once all were seated, Boyd spoke. Thank you for coming. Considering the season, I thought it appropriate to gather everyone involved in this situation. Is this some kind of sick revenge fantasy? Reed interrupted. Because I've already contacted my attorney. Your attorney declined to represent you further this morning. Boyd informed him calmly. Something about irreconcilable differences regarding payment. Reed paled slightly, but maintained his defiance. Whatever this is, I don't have to participate. Actually, you do, Thomas interjected, sliding documents across the table. This is a legally binding mediation as ordered by the court. Failure to participate constitutes contempt. Boyd remained standing, addressing the room. For 15 months, I served my country in a combat zone, believing I had a family waiting for my return. Instead, I found strangers living in my home who had systematically erased my existence. Monica started to speak, but Boyd continued. I've spent the last 3 weeks investigating exactly how and why this happened. What I discovered was more than infidelity. It was a calculated campaign of exploitation and fraud. He nodded to Thomas, who distributed folders to everyone present. These contain the legal consequences of your actions. Monica, you committed fraud against the federal government by continuing to claim military-dependent benefits while maintaining a relationship with Dr. Reed. The prosecutor has agreed to civil penalties rather than criminal charges. You'll find the settlement agreement on page 3. Monica's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Dr. Reed, the medical board has completed its review of your conduct at County General and your previous institutions. Their findings and sanctions are detailed in your documents, along with the terms of your separation from the hospital. Reed's face flushed with anger. This is a witch hunt. I've done nothing illegal. Unethical isn't always illegal, Richard Hargrove noted calmly. But in healthcare, it's equally damaging. Boyd turned finally to Zoe. Your folder contains different documents. The deed to a small apartment I've purchased near campus transferred into your name. Tuition for your final 3 semesters, paid in advance directly to the university. And a modest monthly allowance. Enough to live on, not enough for luxury. Zoe looked up in confusion. I don't understand. You betrayed me, Boyd stated simply, but you're still my daughter. I won't see you homeless or uneducated. What you do with this second chance is entirely your decision. The room fell silent as each person absorbed the implications of their documents. Finally, Reed spoke, his voice tight with controlled fury. So that's it. You've systematically destroyed our professional reputations, our relationship, our financial security, and now you're playing the magnanimous victor? No, Boyd replied. I've ensured appropriate consequences for dishonorable actions. Nothing more. Monica looked up from her papers, face ashen. These penalties will take years to pay off. Yes, Boyd agreed. Approximately the same number of years I committed to our marriage while you were planning its dissolution. And what about you? She challenged. Do you face no consequences in this perfect justice system you've created? Boyd's expression softened slightly, the first crack in his armor. My consequences began the moment I walked into our home and was told I had the wrong house. I lost my family, my history, and my future in an instant. The difference is I didn't deserve my punishment. You earned yours. Zoe pushed her folder away. I can't accept this. Not after how I treated you. You're not accepting it as a gift, Boyd clarified. You're accepting it as a responsibility. Sometimes the heaviest consequence is having to live with what you've done while being given the opportunity to do better. As the initial shock wore off, the discussion turned to practical matters. Thomas explained the legal frameworks, timelines, and obligations. Victor detailed the evidence supporting each determination. Judge Pearson ensured procedural correctness. Throughout, Boyd remained impassive, watching as the reality of their new circumstances settled over Monica, Reed, and Zoe. This wasn't the emotional confrontation they had perhaps expected. No shouting, no recriminations, no opportunity for dramatic apologies or promises to change. This was the cold, methodical dismantling of the future they had planned at his expense. As the meeting concluded, Boyd addressed them one final time. This ends my involvement in your lives. The legal mechanisms are in place. The consequences will unfold regardless of my presence. You're each free to rebuild as best you can. Reed was the first to leave, avoiding eye contact with Monica, already mentally cutting ties. Monica lingered, seeming smaller somehow. The confident woman who had dismissed Boyd from his own home, now facing years of financial recovery and professional uncertainty. Was any of it real? Boyd asked her quietly when the others had moved away. Us. Monica met his gaze. Once. A long time ago. Before deployments and distance and resentment. Boyd nodded, accepting this partial truth. Goodbye, Monica. Zoe remained last, clutching the folder containing her second chance. Dad, Staff Sergeant Riker, he corrected gently. "We're not there yet, Zoe. Maybe someday." "Will I see you again?" she asked, voice small. "That depends on what you do with your second chance," he replied. "Not every betrayal can be forgiven, but some can be survived." Chapter 9. Aftermath. 6 months later, Boyd Riker stood on the observation deck of a military transport plane as it approached the airstrip at Forward Operating Base Resolute. Below, the rugged landscape of the new deployment zone stretched to the horizon, a far cry from suburban America with its comfortable illusions. "Ready for this, Staff Sergeant?" asked Captain Alicia Mendez, his new commanding officer. "Ready," Boyd confirmed. After finalizing his divorce and ensuring all legal mechanisms were in place, Boyd had requested reinstatement to active duty, not from desperation or escape, but from recognition of where he truly belonged. His tactical skills had earned him selection for a specialized unit focusing on intelligence operations. The Boyd Riker who had rushed home for Christmas no longer existed. In his place was a man with clearer vision, uncompromising standards, and no illusions about human nature. "Your reputation precedes you," Mendez noted as they prepared to disembark. "Not just your military record. Word gets around about how you handled your personal situation." Boyd said nothing, letting the comment hang in the air. "Some might call it excessive," she continued. "I call it instructive. Consequences matter." Back in the States, those consequences continued to unfold. Monica had relocated to Florida, living with her sister while working entry-level administrative jobs, her healthcare career effectively over. The financial penalties from her fraudulent benefits claims would follow her for a decade. Lawrence Reed had secured a position at a small practice in Seattle, a significant step down from his chief of surgery ambitions. His professional reputation remained tarnished, his opportunities limited. The carefully constructed facade that had attracted Monica had crumbled under scrutiny. And Zoe had made unexpected choices. After a period of reflection, she had changed her major from business to psychology, focusing on military family support systems. She maintained the modest apartment Boyd had provided, but had taken a part-time job to supplement the allowance, developing a work ethic she'd previously lacked. She sent Boyd monthly emails, never expecting responses, but providing updates on her progress, acknowledging her failings, documenting her efforts to understand the damage she had participated in. Boyd read each one, but never replied. Some betrayals cut too deep for simple reconciliation. The transport plane touched down with a jolt, bringing Boyd back to the present moment. As he gathered his gear, Wes Curtis appeared at the cargo bay, grinning. "Look what the war spit back," Wes said, echoing their greeting from months ago. The two men embraced briefly. Wes had pulled strings to join Boyd's new unit, understanding his friend needed loyal people around him. "How's civilian life?" Boyd asked as they walked toward the base. "Overrated," Wes replied. "Too many people taking too much for granted." "And Iris? How's she doing with the house?" After reclaiming his property, Boyd had rented it at a nominal fee to Iris Jenkins, whose kindness had been a rare bright spot in the darkness. She maintained it beautifully, sending occasional photos of improvements she'd made to the garden. "Thriving," Wes reported. "Neighborhood watches her back. Nobody mentions Monica or Reed." As they reached the command center, Boyd received a notification, an email from Thomas Grayson with an unexpected update. Reed had abandoned Seattle, leaving behind mounting debts. He'd attempted to secure positions at 3 other hospitals, but background checks had revealed the pattern Boyd had exposed. Some actions created ripples that continued long after the initial stone had sunk from sight. That night, alone in his quarters, Boyd unpacked the few personal items he'd brought. Among them, a small silver pendant with 3 intertwined bands, the gift he'd never had the chance to give. He studied it briefly before placing it in a secure box with his will and other important documents. The man who had commissioned that pendant was gone, replaced by someone harder but clearer-eyed. Boyd Riker had learned the most important tactical lesson of his life. Loyalty was not a given, love was not guaranteed, and the most dangerous threats often came from those closest to you. His phone buzzed with a final message before communications would be limited: Zoe's monthly update. This one was different. I don't expect forgiveness. Some things can't be undone. But I want you to know I understand now what I threw away. Not just financial security or family stability, but integrity itself. Mom called yesterday, asking for money. I declined. Some lessons I learned from you after all. Stay safe, wherever you are. Boyd read it twice, then deleted it without responding. Perhaps someday he would find room for reconciliation, but that day was not today. Today was for the mission, for the brothers in arms who had never betrayed his trust, for the clear certainty of purpose that had replaced the illusions of domestic life. He stepped outside into the cool night air of the base, looking up at stars unclouded by city lights. Somewhere across the world, his former family was living with the consequences of their choices. He had ensured that justice, if not forgiveness, had been served. It was enough. In the command center, Captain Mendez was assembling the team for their first briefing. Boyd Riker straightened his uniform and walked toward his future, leaving the ghosts of betrayal behind. Not forgotten, but no longer defining him. Some men broke under betrayal. Others were forged by it into something stronger, more resolute, uncompromising. Boyd Riker had chosen the latter path, and he would never look back again. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.